School funding. Superintendents from across Colorado pressuring lawmakers to change a 2010 law they say takes $50 million a year from education, reducing elective programs, materials, preventing building repairs and upgrades, and taking away money from rural districts that don't have the same funding as metro area districts. And joining us today to talk school funding are Superintendent Dr. Liz Fagan from Douglas County Schools, Dr. Bruce Messenger from the Boulder Valley Schools.
So thank you both for being here. We appreciate it. Sure. Dr. Messenger, we're going to start with you
right.
because you're part of this group of 167 Colorado superintendents lobbying to end the negative factor which pulls funding.
Right.
Explain that to our viewers first. What does that mean?
So the negative factor is a result of, in 2009, 2010, when the state was going through a recession, tough economic times, according to the Constitution, the legislature should have been allocating funds that would have kept up with the cost of living and growth of enrollment. They weren't able to do that, so they stepped away from that constitutional responsibility and sort of did a negative factor. So they deducted from what they established the formula, then they reduced the amount to balance the budget. So over time, they've just allocated less to schools than what the Constitution called for. And so that difference over time has just compounded. And so this year it's over $800 million out of a $6 billion budget. So over 10% less than what should be going to schools. And so that's a negative factor. So the last few years we've been advocating for more money to come back to get schools back to where they should have been had we kept up with inflation and enrollment growth. And so for all of our school districts, each year we get notably less than we would have had we been able to keep up during those from the recession on.
Now, I was told there would be no math here, so forgive me for... It's a tough topic to discuss, and Dr. Fagan, you're a proponent for more funding for schools, but not on the same side as the majority of the superintendents. What's wrong with what's out there, and what do you think needs to change?
Well, we're actually very supportive of what the superintendent's letter said, with the exception of the use of the hospital provider fee. So in doing a bit of due diligence with the lawmakers, it just was suggested that perhaps that not be the best approach. And so what we wanted to do was see a letter without the hospital provider fee in it, advocating for more dollars for Colorado students, and then we would have been right in line with the rest.
And again, the hospital provider fee is that mechanism in Tabor, in the state budget, that is impacting transportation and education, and we'll hear more about that throughout the year. Do you have to figure out funding as though the hospital provider fee will be part of the funding, or are you saying, okay, forget that, where's our money going to come from, ignore that, tell me where it's coming from right now?
Well, what we do is, at this time of the year, we start building our budgets based on what the governor puts forward. And we assume that that is probably close to where we'll end up. We don't know for sure. One of the challenges of budgeting in Colorado is that we do have to wait for the long bill to pass. Then we know exactly what our funding is, and we can build our actual budget that starts on July 1st.
So you're doing math as well, constantly.
We are doing math constantly. I mean, I'll just build on Liz's comments, is that we are in a position right now to begin to build a preliminary budget, hire staff, project how much, what our enrollment will be, how many staff we'll need, those who retire we need to replace. So we have to start making some assumptions around the level of funding we'll receive. And the reality is many of those decisions are executed before we actually know what the funding level will be. So it is challenging, and it's really been challenging in recent years with the uncertainty, and now with Tabor layered on top of that. It really is hard for us to project, and we will work off the governor's budget. That's generally what we do as well.
So what would more money mean to your schools? I mean, everyone wants more money, right? But realistically, what is it, we're talking, hundreds of school districts here. What is it that schools need?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of different things, but, probably close to 90% of our total budget in both of our school districts, in most school districts, are for personnel, because that's what we do. And so it affects, when we're underfunded, it affects our class size, it affects counseling support, it will affect if we have literacy interventionists or second language learners. So all of the programs for direct instruction to assist students to be successful, those either are diminished or entirely eliminated. And so where we are today versus where we were a decade or two ago, the landscape looks very different because of the lack of funding over time. And it affects our employee salaries. The educator pipeline, about the number of teachers entering into our profession, is way down in Colorado, way down across the country. And it's not just because of salaries. There are a lot of reasons, but not being competitive with salaries. We're really low as a state overall with our salaries of our professional and support staff. So it's a combination of all. I mean, eventually you have to balance the budget. So you take a little bit from everything, but then it just begins to affect quality over time.
Now, the Joint Budget Committee recently found $25 million to pump back into education. Will that make a difference?
Well, it will make a small difference. I mean, when you're looking at the difference, it's about, $25 to $30 per student. So we're not talking about a significant amount of money, but everything helps, and we're absolutely for it. As the assessed valuations have gone up locally, that has taken a bit of the pressure off the state budget and has helped with the education funding.
What's different about Douglas County that you need more funding?
Well, Douglas County is one of the lowest funded districts on the Front Range given the current finance formula. A lot of people don't know that or don't expect that. It's just the way that the weighted factors are put through the formula. Douglas County is penalized a little bit because we don't have a large proportion of our students percentage-wise that are at risk by the Colorado formula. And so because of that, we're one of the lowest funded districts. And it's a challenge when you're in such a tight metro area working to meet the needs of all students. Even though we don't have a large percentage maybe of at-risk students, we still have a large number, thousands of them. We also have a large number of special education students. We all do. And with increasing needs that are not funded properly by the formula.
Everyone's going to say, I look at my property tax bill and I fund a lot of education. Is that a misconception that where you live and funding the school is going to take care of everything?
It is, because the way that the formula works is that they put in the local share first, but then if your local share goes up, the state share comes down. So you don't actually get all of that additional money because you get it, but then the state share comes down to meet it, so it's really flat.
So the state provides less if you're getting more property tax.
That's exactly right.
But I'm sure people are thinking Boulder County, Douglas County, these are two of our affluent counties.
So the assessed valuation in both of our counties went up almost 20% in this for this present year, which meant that the local taxpayers in our communities were paying more in. And so what Liz said is then that the equalization piece, the state's portion, didn't need as much, so they pulled back. It was well over $100 million that the state had planned to send to schools this year that they didn't need to because so much more was generated locally. So our local taxpayers say, you must be getting more money. We say, no, we're getting the same amount we planned on. It's just that you're paying more of it locally in the state. So then they took that $100 million that they didn't need to equalize and used it for other services in the state of Colorado. That was a decision by the Joint Budget Committee just this last week. So, and we understand because of some of the limitations under the Taxpayer Bill of Rights that the whole state's in a bit of a mess right now with regard to roads and higher ed and K-12 and all of the other services. And so we certainly respect what the governor's proposed as a budget to try to balance it. But, there's some big tax policy issues the state needs to address.
Two bills at the Capitol right now address funding for full-day kindergarten. And right now, districts handle half-day for sure. What kind of constraint would it put if the state had to pay full-day kindergarten and parents wouldn't have to pay a thing?
Right. Well, we would love to have full-day kindergarten funded by the state. We think it's the right thing to do if it were a parent choice. And if you choose to have full-day kindergarten, you should absolutely have it fully funded. The challenge for districts like mine is that we're a growing district. Many of our schools are very full, and you're talking about additional classroom space that we didn't initially plan on. So, there have been estimates around $50 million in kindergarten classrooms that we might need if, indeed, we do fully fund all-day kindergarten.
Would things have to be cut in any of the districts as a result?
So, so the facilities that Liz described is one set of issues. Our school district recently passed a bond issue, and so we're building out each of our schools so that we can accommodate full-day kindergarten and preschool in each site. So the level of investment that needs to be made with facilities is true throughout the state, and those are all local dollars that pay for that. The state doesn't contribute to school construction, and so the bills that you're referring to are around the operational costs, so the dollars needed to hire teachers and paraeducators to go forward. We would advocate as a school district for full-day kindergarten and more preschool support, knowing that there's some challenges around space. But right now we get a little more than half for each kindergarten student. And so in high-poverty schools where we do offer full-day kindergarten, then that just comes from some other place in the budget. So I think most of us would advocate for full-day kindergarten, full funding for that, and then we'll work to figure out space and other things.
We saw in the last couple of weeks a lot of discussion about Adams schools, a district in Adams County that is looking at fracking as a possibility in around school areas. What do you two think of that? Is that something you'd consider?
Well, I think it depends. As we build schools, and the reality is there's an interface between communities and oil and gas industry and schools, and so we're not exempt from that than anyone else. I think that as oil wells are drilled or located near campuses, or we're building a new school in Erie right now, and so there's an interface there, and there are setbacks required appropriate from the Oil and Gas Commission. So the question is, how do we manage that? And not unlike other community needs in the homes, and so we're just a part of that same
conversation.
Well, we just have to be involved in the conversation. Health and safety is clearly our highest priority, and this is a hot topic across our state, the fracking and the interface with communities and schools, and so we'll just engage in that with our communities like we do other things.
Fagan?
Absolutely, totally agree with, safety is our #1 priority in the district. If you're not safe, nothing else really matters, and so we would want to have the conversation with people that have expertise in these areas and be part of that conversation before making any decisions.
But it's a new revenue source if it happens.
Well, only if school districts have the mineral rights, which it isn't very frequent that they have the mineral rights. So it's more about just the interface, meaning that somebody owns a plot of land and has mineral rights next to a school or where we need to build a school, and so they want to develop their assets because it's money for them or for the oil company, and we have needs around creating a school or building a park or whatever. So it's more of a health and safety issue for school districts than it is about revenue. Clearly the development of oil and gas in our state generates revenue, which helps support the whole state fund, and so energy is very important to our state, and it's really trying to find that balance, and the more interface there is, the little more complicated it becomes.
Educating us on fracking and property tax and school funding all at the same time.
Yeah.
SATs, by the way,
Yeah.
changing to SATs, that's been a hot topic, I think, for a lot of parents especially, too. Is that causing chaos? Is that...
Well, the good news is it's been postponed. So it was supposed to happen this spring, just literally months away, and parents were very upset about that. They had prepared for the ACT. And that has been delayed by the Colorado Department of Education until at least next year. And so this year's juniors will be taking the ACT.
Yeah, so Liz and I worked together with other superintendents to communicate to the State Board of Education and the Commissioner on this very topic over winter break, because the timing initially was to bring the SAT on this spring, and it was just too soon for a transition, so they backed away.
Is that enough time then, 2017, to get
It certainly is. We'll certainly help with this. There's still quite a bit of conversation in the field going on. Is it the right test, and should we be doing just one test? That's probably a whole nother conversation, but certainly the decision made to slow it down helps with the transition. I think there's a bigger conversation to be had around whether we ought to have a high school assessment, and if so, is it either one of these, or should students have a choice of how they demonstrate their proficiency?
Or just more testing in general. That's
more testing, another conversation.
Class dismissed. Dr. Messenger, Dr. Fagan, thanks for joining us for this intriguing conversation.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.